What's going on, everybody? And welcome back. So today, what we're going to be doing is we got this 150 in here. The bottom part of that whole dash on that 150 is basically completely destroyed. It crumbled down to nothing. There's really nothing left of the bottom half of the dash on that 150. So what the customer asked us to do is obviously put a new dash, bottom half of that dash in there, and then recover the seats. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video, and that's what I'm going to be working on today and probably, the next few days until we get this thing done. Let me show you what we got. So far, I got the doors off of here. I got the seats out, and the seats are being worked on. I got the seat rail sandblasted and painted, and then, the fabric and everything is being done right now. And this is what the dash currently looks like. You can see the whole bottom half is gone. We'll put all of this in here. This here is, what it was. This blue plastic stuff here, and it just all crumbled and broke, and we ended up doing is just, ripping the rest of it out of there, and that's what we're gonna be replacing. So, should be fun. So obviously, when you're working on these old airplanes, it can be kind of difficult to find pieces and plastics and things like that. But I did find a company called Plain Plastics out of, I don't know, I found them online somewhere. They have like certified plastics and all that stuff. And what I found was basically just this whole dash right here, and then it comes with this insert that should go somewhere in here. So there's a cover that'll go here for the glove box as well, that I'll be putting in, probably one of the final stages of doing this little project here. But I think one of the first things that I need to do is probably start removing the cables, like the throttle cable, the mixture cable, the carb heat, and all that stuff, because those cables you got to put in from the front, and then, there's a nut that goes on the back side of that, and I can't really fit up the dash or anything unless all that stuff is out of there. So I think what I'll do is just get started on taking all that stuff out there and just get after it. So it looks like I'm gonna need to remove this one, the mixture cable, throttle cable, the carb heats, and then, what a mess. And probably this one here, which shouldn't be too bad because they all get pushed in. They all push in from the front. And then once I get all these out of here, I'll have to cut a slot for this as well. Then I can push that panel up there and then draw the circles, draw the holes from the back side so I can mark out that panel and get a good fit on where the holes, where I need to drill the holes and stuff. So yeah, should be fun. Looks like these ones here open and close those vents for fresh air. So you've got two, probably one for each side. This one opens that one. I'm assuming the other one will go for the other side. We'll make sure. And then I'll pull everything out and I'll label everything so we know where it goes when we put it back in. So sometimes when you're working by yourself, it can be kind of a pain to hold the wrench on one side, get in the cabin area and get a wrench on there and try to twist off the nut. So, in situations like this, you just got to get creative. Now, keep in mind that nut is not very tight. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't work. That wouldn't be enough. Or maybe I would just need some more tape or something. But I think that'll get it. It'll just hold that wrench there, so I can just kind of untwist the other side, and I don't need another person or have to call another person over here to do it. So that should work. So I think that pretty much wraps up everything that I need to take off the dash. I got all the control cables out, the fuses and everything out of there. And pretty much all I'm left with is the trim wheel, which I'm going to trim out once I start fitting everything up. But you know, it was kind of a process doing all that stuff. It took a little bit of time, probably a few hours to get all that out. And that's because half of the stuff was just broke off, you know, like the fuses and all that stuff, which you know, I think what I'm going to do is just get rid of all those fuses, and I'm going to put circuit breakers in place of where those go, and kind of update that whole part of the panel and everything. It'll be a lot easier to do, and it'll be a lot better in the long run just to get rid of those things. So I think that's what I'm going to do on that. Now pretty much all I got to do is fit up the new piece, start fitting it up, trimming it up, marking out the holes, and then get everything drilled and fit into place. So I guess let's get after it. All right, now it's time for the fun part. Now all I gotta do is just kind of get this in there, get it mocked up, start drilling out the holes, marking the holes, cutting out the trim. I think I'm gonna have to do that first, just kind of cut out where the trim wheel is, otherwise it's not gonna sit flat on there, and I'm not gonna be able to get the rest of it on there. So this should be fun. This might probably take a little while to do, but I wanna make it right. So let's get started on it. So when we get these pieces in, a lot of times, you know, they're just kind of they don't fit exactly right. What I ended up doing is I just put it, you know, I kind of mocked it up there on the dash, and then I traced out kind of the areas on which I'm gonna have to trim off to get it to fit right. And of course, you know, I'll put it on, see where it's at, trim a little bit more until I get it. I'll just work it until I get it right. Let me show you what I got so far. So I got the dash kind of mocked up into place here. All of the holes been cut out. I cut out the holes here for the Avionics. I have the trim, the dash trimmed up so that I can get it behind the panel, because it came down, you know, pretty far when I originally put it in there. I got all the holes cut out for where the control cables go, and like the flap switch and all that stuff. The trim is all cut out. I got the indicator cut out, and then I ended up cutting out the glove box here, and then the panel where all of the switches and all of that stuff go. Had to cut out that because there's another panel that actually goes in front of here where all of these, you know, switches and circuit breakers are gonna go, and that kind of just angles out like this. And then now all I got to do is just drill these two holes here and then start putting all of this stuff back together. But it's coming together pretty good, and it's going to definitely look a lot better than it was, you know, when we first started, which was basically nothing, just crumbled. So I'm going to move forward with that, and let's see how it looks. One thing that kind of drives me nuts about these not having an audio panel is they install these little audio boxes, and a lot of times what they do is they take these audio boxes and they just kind of velcro them somewhere. They kind of lay it on the floor, and then they have this little push to talk button that they just kind of string up, and it just gets kind of velcro like this, and then when you try to hit it, it's kind of in your way and it just moves around, and it's kind of annoying sometimes. But I mean, it works, and it works good. It's just that, you know, it's kind of annoying to have, you know, having all that stuff there. So I think what I'm going to do with this panel here is I'm going to make a bracket that's just going to come down and kind of hold this so that it's in like this, and it'll be clear and out of the way. And then what I think I'm going to do is take this button and put it right here in this void, in this open spot here. There's nothing that goes here. And so when you're flying, all you got to do is just reach over, and you can just push the talk button right here and do all your ATC communications. And that'll kind of clean up this whole area is what I'm thinking. So let's give that a shot. All right, so now that I got the dash in, I got the radios in, the audio panel stuff, I think what I'm gonna do is change that a little bit. I was gonna put that little box in there, but what I ended up doing is gonna be removing that whole box and putting the audio jacks underneath on the dash to just kind of clean up and eliminate that whole mess down there. And then I'm going to put the push to talk button right there on the dash. I think that'll really clean things up a lot better, and it should look pretty good. The next step in this whole process is this panel right here is where we're going to put all the switches. The ignition key, the master switch is going to go right here, and then under here is where all the new circuit breakers are going to go. So what I'm doing now is just I'm going through, kind of cutting out all of the areas of where I'm gonna install all that stuff, and then, you know, install this last switch here and just kind of get it mocked up and then ready for a final installation. Once it's all done, get all the wires put in there, put it in, screw it on there for the last time, test everything, and then we should be good to go. After that, we'll put the seats in. I gotta show you how those turned out. I think they turned out pretty cool. So check this out. You get some of this stuff cleared out of the way. This is how the seats turned out. We went with the blue, and then the white, and then the blue stitching to kind of obviously to match the paint scheme on this old Cessna here. But this is kind of like how the original ones were, but with just more of a modern twist to them. We added a pocket back here and did like a two-tone in that pocket. So, and then we made the base black to match the carpet. So I think it turned out pretty good, and I think it'll look good in there. So excited to get these in and see what they look like. All right, so I got all the switches in on this panel here. I have all of the circuit breakers in as well. I put a new bus bar on the back side of this, and then, you know, drilled the hole for the power that goes to that. So what I'm going to do now is I have to go in the airplane there and start disassembling or cutting out all of the fuses, the fuse blocks, and just start rewiring it so that I can attach those wires to the bus bar and start getting all this kind of mounted up. And then once I get all that in there, I'll drill out the hole for the power switch. The alternator breaker will go in there as well. A couple of dimmer switches are going to go here and here. This here's where the key off and on will go. So we're just about there. Got a few more things to do. And then we gotta just put the seats in. It should be pretty well wrapped up after that. So we're gonna try to get this done by the end of the day. All right, so I got the wiring pretty much all wrapped up. I got all the switches in, the dimmer knobs are in, all the breakers are in, the power switch is in. And I went through the whole system, turned the power on, obviously going through it and making sure that there's no smoke or anything like that, and going through all the switches and making sure all the switches work. The dimmer switches for the lights work, also for the dash, and I could see them turning on, and went through each one of these switches and made sure that the beacon is working and everything is wired up. So now what I got to do, now that everything is the way it should be, is put this in the dash here, and then put the key switch in there and screw it down, and everything should be good to go as far as that goes. Once I get that in, I'll go ahead and put the dash in, and then I'll put that push to talk switch right here in the dash as well. After all that's done, we'll put the trim pieces back in, we'll put the seats in, the door panels back on, and that should be a wrap. All right, so here's a neat little trick that I came up with to try to get these holes lined up on the top here. So on the top here, I don't know if you can see that or not, but on the top here, there's, obviously this panel has no holes in it, but on the back side of this panel, there's a rail with some nut plates, and it's nearly impossible to get the holes to drill through there and get it lined up with the nut plates and get it exactly accurate. So what I did is I got a piece of wire like this, and then I got this torch here, and I crawled underneath that dash there and just kind of laid my head under there so I could see behind on that rail there and see the nut plates. And then what I did is I just heated this up and got it super, super hot, and then pushed it through the nut plates so that it would just come through, so it would melt and then come through the front side of this plate here, so that I can get an accurate spot to put the screws in. And then once I did all three of those, I know where I'm going to put my screws, and then I just got to put the screws in, and it should go right through and hit the nut plates on the other side. Should work out pretty good. so the dash is in. That is pretty much complete. So the next thing I got to do is get these seats put together. If I can remember how to do it, there's a bar that goes through here. When you pull that bar, it'll move the seat back and forth, almost like a little bit of a recliner. It'll open up. The wheels go in here, and then there's a pin that drops in this section right here. When you pull that up, there's a pin that'll drop down, and that's how you lock the seat into place when you move it back and forth. So all I really got to do now is just get these put together, and after that, put the seats in, and then put the doors on, put the door side panels on, and then the cowling. And I think that's gonna be a wrap. So I think that's pretty much it. I got the dashes all done. Everything is installed in the dash. I got the seats put in, and I guess really the only thing left to do is put the doors on and then put the cowling back on, and you know, that's pretty much it. But I tell you what, let's go take a look and see what it looks like. I gotta say, that's a huge improvement from where that thing started from. Let's do a quick recap here. So what were my thoughts about this project? To be honest with you, it was actually, the project wasn't bad. There was a lot more involved with it than I anticipated. When you take on a project like this, you got to take out, as you guys seen in the video, you got to take out pretty much everything in the dash. You got to take out every control cable that there is, the fuel, the mixture, you know, all of the dash pieces. What I didn't anticipate was having to take out all the fuses and stuff. I didn't originally plan on doing that, but once I started digging into it, the fuse bar, I guess, you know, the bus bar and everything, you couldn't unscrew it to like drill holes and then pop them through the front. It was just, you had to push them through the front first, and then they were soldered onto the bus bar, which pretty much made it impossible to get back in. So that's when I decided we should just put the breakers in anyway, which is obviously going to be much better in the long run. So that took a little bit of time to do all that, but it was just, you know, it wasn't a bad process. It just took some time, you know, cutting everything, putting that bus bar, putting all the fuses in, or the breakers in, rerunning pulling all the cables out, rerunning all the cables again. Yeah, and then just, you know, the seats and everything, putting the seats in, which obviously didn't take much time, but I mean, I think it looks a lot better, and I hope the customer's happy with it. So I think that's where we're going to end this video. Like, subscribe, you know what to do. We'll see you later. See you on the next one.